I've had a few requests recently asking me to do a photo editing breakdown, so here it is. I thought I'd start things off by saying that, I don't know everything about photography and I would never class myself as one of the top dogs of the industry in any way whatsoever. I'm always learning new techniques, developing my skills and all of that kind of stuff, and my editing workflow changes. The more stuff I learn, the more things change. So maybe I'll do another one of these in the future when I've learned a lot more. But yeah, I'm just going to be showing you my workflow, what I do, and hopefully you'll learn something. I edit my photos using a combination of Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop. Nevertheless, the editing techniques that I use can be adapted throughout multiple editing softwares that you might prefer. I feel like this goes without saying, but you need to make sure the photo that you are editing is good to start off with. And what I mean by that is, good exposure, composition, and things like that. And don't get me wrong, if your exposure or white balance is off a little bit, then you can fix that in post. But if it's way off, then it's going to make editing the photo really difficult and it's just going to be annoying to work with. For a while now, I've been thinking about doing a photography basics video, so let me know if that is something that you're interested in. Okay, so once we have all the photos in Lightroom, we can begin the process. So I'm going to be editing 3 photos today, all of which are from my London POV photography video. So if you haven't watched that, maybe watch that after this video. Here's a card, and there's also a link in the description. Let's start off with this one right here. So the first thing I do is I go into the crop tab and I just make sure the image is correct in how I want it to look. So I'll adjust the composition and straighten the image if I need to. This image is actually perfectly fine for how I want it. The other two I might adjust a little bit more. So this one I'm actually going to leave how it is, and I'm going to go back into the editing tool and I'm going to start adjusting the white balance and correcting that. So I think that it just needs to be a little bit warmer, and I kind of want a bit of green to come through because I kind of want this to look a bit gringy, a little bit like, I don't know, just a bit cooler. So I'm gonna just kind of bring the greens up a little bit just because I kind of want the green to shine through. I think it looks quite cool. I think it suits this image. A large amount of the viewers that watch this channel are not subscribed. If you could do me a massive favor and click the subscribe button, that would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you all so much. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram, links in the description. Right, so now I'm going to move on and play with some of these sliders, but the key here is to just do minor adjustments, and then I use the / key to kind of, see how much of an edit I'm doing, to kind of look back at the original image and compare it. And you'll notice that all of these small changes that we're going to make is going to add up, and it's going to really change the image quite a lot. So I use the / key, and already, so that's before, that's after, that's just changing the white balance. I'll Z to zoom in a little bit more, and the / key, before, after. So I want that green to come through with the white balance. That's why I've changed it like that. But yeah, so the key here is to do minor adjustments, use the / key, and then you can really just see how much is changing, and you might want to dial it back, you might want to push things forward. So that's just one thing that I do, and that is just small adjustments. Another thing to mention is global adjustments is only something I'll do on certain images, and if I do global adjustments, then it's kind of only minor. But only for specific images. This one is fine because the sky's blown out anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It was a really cloudy day. What I mean by global adjustments is if you change anything on these slides, it's going to affect the entire image. So that's the clarity. That's what I mean by global adjustments. If I want to bump the saturation up, it's changing the entire image. That's what global adjustments is, just if you didn't know. So what I tend to do is I use the masking tool, which we'll get to in a second, and I do a lot of adjustments with different masks, and it really helps you have a lot more control over your edit, but we'll get to that shortly. But in this case, for this image, global adjustments I think are going to be just fine. So I'm going to just bump up the contrast slightly. I'm going to just raise the shadows just because I want a bit more detail over here, and I'm just going to lower the whites ever so slightly, and I'm going to push up the clarity and the texture tab. This is looking nice. And I'm going to bump up the saturation and vibrance tab. So minor adjustments there, right? But there's the / key, that's before, and that's after. So big differences, minor adjustments, big differences, and the backslash key is just a great way to make sure you're not going overboard. So just from looking at that, you know, I think I might bring the shadows down just a little bit because, you know, I bumped it up maybe too much. So I'm going to bring those back down, and I'm actually going to bring the clarity tab back down as well because I don't want it to look like too edited, if that makes sense. Scrolling down, I'm going to play with some of these color wheels, the mid-tones. I'm just going to move things around until I'm happy, and you know, I might just keep it the same or I might not. See, it's quite nice actually dialing the green back a little bit, so I might, this is quite nice. I'm going to do that. And the shadows, I'm actually going to keep that one as is. And scrolling down again, sharpening tab, I always sharpen my images just a little bit, just because I just like to. Okay, and looking at that, that is quite nice. I think I just want the mid-tones to be a little bit less green, I think. That's quite nice. So that's before, and that's after. I'm actually pretty happy with that, to be honest. Before we move on to the masking tab, on the left-hand side, you can see that there are some presets. Now, I believe these presets come with Lightroom. I'm pretty sure, because I haven't actually bought any of these, I don't think, anyway. So one thing that I do is I go to the adaptive sky, and I play around with these, and these are really good at bringing back details on, you know, things that are blown out, like the sky, for example. It's a really cloudy day, but we are getting some detail in the sky a little bit. So that's kind of bringing some blues back, which is quite nice, but I sometimes just go through a couple of these and just, you know, see if any of them work. I think blue drama is bringing back a little bit of sky, so I'm going to just click on that. So that has literally created a mask just around the sky, and it's kind of brought back some details there, which is really nice. So when you're in a happy place with all of this, then let's move on to the masking tool. Now, the masking tool is hands down the best feature in Lightroom, in my opinion. I think it is absolutely just awesome. The fact that you can really have so much control over your edit, I just think it's such an amazing tool, and it's so worth spending some time and getting to know all of the stuff about it, because it's literally changed the way I edited photos from when I was a beginner to now. And yeah, I genuinely think that if you're not too sure about what the masking tool is, you need to look it up, because it is, you have so much power with the masking tool. It's brilliant. So you can see here it's selected the sky, and we can actually extend this, and what I'll show you is if you select this and press show overlay, you can actually see its selection for the sky. It's actually not included any of these pieces here, but it doesn't actually look that bad at all, so I'm going to just leave it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new mask, and you have all of these selections. For this, I'm going to just use the linear gradient, and what I want to do is I want to kind of shape the light a little bit with this photo. I kind of want it to look a little bit more moody, and I don't know, just going to see what we can do. I don't think I'm going to be changing much in terms of like clarity, saturation, stuff like that. It's just going to be light for this photo, so let's see what we can do. We've got the gradient tool, and I'm going to select down here and just pull up. Okay, and I'm going to do it kind of in line with the building as well. So that's quite nice. And if you don't want to see the actual mask selection, then just press show overlay, make sure that's unchecked, and then it'll get rid of that. And now all of these adjustments here is just adjusting what I selected with that mask. So I'm just going to press show overlay again. All of these settings here on the right are adjusting this section of the image. Now, I might not want, can you see, I don't know if it's probably quite faint, but you can see that it has gone over the sky a little bit, which wouldn't make much sense. You know, if I, just as an exaggeration, if I bring this right down, you know, up here, that doesn't really make much sense that there's darkness here. So how to fix this is you click on the mask and you click add or subtract. So I'm going to click subtract, and I'm going to go down to the brush tool, and I'm literally going to paint away the mask so that it's not affecting certain areas. And you can, you know, go into as much detail as you want, and it really helps you shape the mask that you're making, basically. And I'm now just going to bring the exposure down, And the shadows. It's quite nice. And I'm just going to adjust this mask a little bit. That's pretty good. And like I said before, we'll use the backslash key to really see how much is changing. It's quite cool. This is nice. This is looking good. So I'm going to do another one, linear gradient, and I want to just kind of make this section a little bit darker as well. So I'm just going to pull this up. And if you want to feather it more, you can bring it down and then you just move this up and it kind of feathers it a little bit more, which is pretty good. So I'm just going to adjust this. Okay, this is looking quite good. I think this one's a little bit too dark, so I'm just going to go back and brighten it up a little bit. And you can also, up here, you can turn the masks individually on and off. If you don't want to completely strip the edit away and you just want to get rid of the mask just to see what's happening, then you can press this little eye and it will get rid of it, and then you can bring it back in, and can you see down here? If you look down here, and I'll press this on and off. So that's on and that's off. So we are doing quite a lot of changes here, which is what I intended anyway. And the last thing I want to do with this is I'm going to use the brush tool, and I'm just going to select this section here, I think. And you can, you don't have to be very specific with all this. I'm just going to bring those highlights down just ever so slightly. That's without, and that's with. Yeah, see, that's kind of giving it like a really nice grungy feel. So that image is pretty much complete. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's press Z so we can zoom out, and I'll come out of the mask section. So just from changing a couple sliders and playing around with the mask tool, we've gone from this raw photo to this edit, and this looks really nice. It's a very subtle edit. I don't really like going too overboard. So yeah, this looks pretty good. Let's move on to the next one. So this is an image of St. Paul's Cathedral in between two buildings, and I think it looks really, really cool. It kind of reminds me actually of Dumbo in New York. There's a photo I took of that a couple years ago, which I'll show on screen, and you'll kind of see what I mean. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the crop tab, and I'm just going to straighten this up a little bit. That looks pretty good to me. Nice. Now the goal for me with this edit is to bring the shadows down on the walls and really make St. Paul's Cathedral pop and look really, really nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some quick minor adjustments, bring those shadows down, bring those highlights down, bring those blacks down. And already we're getting that look that we want. So that's before, that's after, so that's great. And I'm just going to bump the clarity up, and the texture and the saturation. Nice, this is looking pretty good. So that's before, that's after, looking good. And I'm going to go down and do some sharpening. And you can go into depth with the color grading, and you can really play around with the colors, the color mixer, and all of that stuff. But I don't really want to do that for this photo because I think the colors look pretty nice. I think the white balance is pretty good. I don't really think I need to change the white balance. So, but it is subjective. Just remember that, if you want to go into detail and change loads of things, you can totally do that. But for these photos and for my look, I don't really want to make this look over edited. So yeah, but you can if you want. So I'm now going to go over to the adaptive sky presets and just go through some of them. And you can actually see that some of them, oh, okay, cool. So this is bringing out quite a lot of detail in the sky. You can actually see some plane streaks from where planes have gone past, which looks really cool. So back into the mask tab, I'm just going to add a linear gradient, and I'm just going to go straight from the bottom and just bring it straight up like that. That is pretty much what I want, like that. And I'm then going to just extend this and click on the mask and just subtract here with the brush tool and make the brush bigger. I'm just going to paint away the mask that goes over St. Paul's Cathedral. And I'm now going to just unselect this and bring the shadows right down. So again, we've gone from this image to this one. Looks really, really cool. Really happy with it. Let's move on to the next one. For this image, I'm going to use a little bit of Photoshop as well as Lightroom, and we'll do that a bit later once we've finished with the edit. But basically I'm going to bring it into Photoshop and I'm just going to remove the storefront here and this person. I might have a look at these guys over here and see if I can get rid of them. But I'll probably use the generative fill AI to do that, but I'm not sure. So we'll figure that out. But let's just edit this photo first and then we can get to that. It is a little bit wonky, so I'm just going to straighten it up. Nice. I think it looks really good. And I'm just going to adjust the white balance, just bringing up the yellows ever so slightly. Cool. So just to have a look, that's before, that's after, looking pretty good. And play around with these shadows, bring those highlights down ever so slightly, bring those blacks down, bring that clarity up, but not loads. That doesn't look great. And just make the vibrance and saturation pop a little bit. And I'm now just going to bring some more magenta into the white balance here, just to balance everything out a little bit. I'm just going to play around with the mid-tones on this wheel. Just see if I can get it to a place that I'm happy with. Just tiny adjustments here. On color mixer, I'm just going to use this little color picker here and just select a green. And I'm just going to kind of bring that up a little bit more into the greens than the yellows. So now I'm going to go to the masking tab and I'm going to use the brush. Now what I want to do here is I want to select these shadows here and all the way along. I'm going to probably leave the ones at the back out just because they kind of merge into one. So I need a tiny brush and I'm just going to start painting. You can always Control or Command Z if you mess up. So what I'm going to do is just make those shadows slightly darker. It's quite nice. It's looking pretty good. Before, after, pretty good. And that's probably all I'm going to do with this image. I'm pretty happy with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come down here to the bottom left and I'm going to right click and I'm going to select Edit In, just going to hover over that and then Edit in Photoshop 2024. And what that's now going to do is put the image in Photoshop and then we can play around with it and then we can save it and then we can bring it back into Lightroom and it just kind of saves you having to like export the image, bring it into Photoshop, then bring it back into Lightroom. I don't know, it's just a lot better way of doing it. So I'm just going to zoom in here. Okay, so what I want to do is try and get rid of this here and this person. So I'm just going to go onto the marquee tool and select this section here and hit generative fill and just see what happens. Pretty good. It's a pretty good selection. We'll go through them. Yeah, the first one's the best. It's quite rare that it gets it perfect on the first one. I don't know if you guys have had much experience with it, but that's pretty good. So that's pretty cool. I'm now going to select our original image and just unlock it. And I'm just going to go into the spot healing brush and just get rid of that camera. And it's not done the best job, so I'm going to use the clone stamp tool. So I'm just going to use the clone stamp tool to kind of fix that error that it's just made there. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm going to keep the person in. I think it makes it quite interesting. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm making a massive mistake there, but I'm going to keep him in. I think that's pretty cool. So I believe all we have to do is just press Control S and exit out of here. And with a bit of luck, there we go. So it's completely gotten rid of the storefront and it looks really cool. We're now back into Lightroom and you can see it's actually added another image here, which is the image that we've just brought in from Photoshop. This is the original one. There you go. So that is 3 photos edited. So I'm pretty happy with these 3. So let's export them. So I'm going to press Shift and I'm just going to select the 3. I'm going to right click and press Export and then Export again. And these are my export settings. If you want to use them, feel free. Once you've put it in the location that you want, we're just going to press Export and you can see up here, it's exporting the photos. So as you can see from the edits, you know, there's nothing crazy going on here. I just do minor adjustments and then that eventually builds up as an edit. Now, the editing workflow does obviously change depending on the image. You know, for like night photography, I do play around with the colors a lot more. But hopefully this video gives you the idea. If I'm being honest, I think the best way for you to learn this is by just getting involved. Watch a couple of videos about the basics of Lightroom and then just spend some time playing around with some of the settings. Let me know in the comments if this video was helpful. Also, comment below any video ideas that you want to see on this channel. I'd happily take on any suggestions. I hope you found this video useful. I hope you found it enjoyable. Have a great rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you in the next video.